In this video, we'll show you how to replace the front brake calipers on your Subaru Impreza. This is located in the front of the vehicle and behind the wheel. Let's get started. We can go ahead and remove the lug nuts with a 19mm. To remove our caliper, we're going to go ahead and remove the caliper bolts with a 12mm. Now we can go ahead and pull the caliper body off. Fold that up. I'll be using a securing strap to make sure that the caliper doesn't fall. To get to the top bracket bolt, we're going to use a 17mm wrench. We'll remove the bottom bracket bolt, 17mm as well. And we can go ahead and remove our caliper bracket. While we're doing our work here, I'm going to use a larger nut and then one of the lug nuts just to hold the rotor on. Before we can install our caliper, I'm going to separate the body of the caliper from the bracket. We can go ahead and remove the bolts holding the pins with a 14mm. You can set that off to the side for now. Now we're going to prepare our bracket to go in. We want to lube the slide pins. Wipe any old grease off them. And we'll apply some new silicone paste. One of your pins will have a rubber isolator. Make sure that goes in the same spot. Once you've pushed it in, release all the air from the boot. And do the same on the other side. We'll apply some anti-seize where the shims go. We'll do the same on the other side of the bracket. Now we can install our shims. You want to make sure that they sit flush. You can do the same on the other side. Now we can go ahead and install this on the car. We can go ahead and install our bracket. We go ahead and snug these down. Now we can go ahead and torque our bracket bolts to 58 foot-pounds. When installing your pads, you want to make sure that the squealer is on the inside pad and hits the brake rotor first when rotating. Now we can install our caliper body, making sure that the slide pins are in the correct orientation. We can install our hardware. We can snug those down. Now we can torque our caliper bolts to 31 foot-pounds. Now we're inside the vehicle. You can set your seat to a position where you can fit a pry bar. You can press down on the brake pedal. You want to be careful not to damage anything. Set the pry bar in between the seat and the pedal, and that'll hold the fluid from coming out. Now we can go ahead and move our brake hose over to our new caliper. Using a 12 millimeter, we can loosen this. You will get some fluid out. Make sure you want to have a receptacle under the vehicle to catch any drips of fluid. You want to make sure that both of the copper washers come off of the caliper as well as the banjo bolt. When installing our banjo bolt, you want to install one of the copper washers, install the banjo bolt in the hose, and install the other copper washer. Now we can install this on the caliper. Now we can go ahead and tighten down our banjo bolt on the caliper. Tighten till it's snug, and then tighten a little bit more to crush the crush washers. Be cautious not to over tighten it though. Now that we've installed our brake hose, we can go ahead and remove the brake pedal depressor. We can remove our old caliper. Make sure you remove your strap that you hung the caliper with. We can remove the bleeder screw cap. We're going to loosen up our bleeder screw. We'll let that gravity bleed just until it starts dripping. Then we can have an assistant help us do our brake bleed. Now that we have a steady drip, we'll go ahead and tighten down the bleeder screw. Doesn't need to be too tight. We're going to go ahead and spray this off with some brake cleaner. Give it a wipe down. Reinstall your bleeder screw cap. Now we can go ahead and reinstall our wheel. If you thread the first lug nut all the way in, it'll hold the wheel for you. We'll go ahead and snug those down. Now we'll torque the wheels to 72 foot-pounds. Before opening your brake fluid reservoir, you want to clean off the cap and the surrounding area. We're just going to use a little bit of brake clean. We'll wipe off the reservoir and the cap You don't want any debris falling into the reservoir. Now we can go ahead and open the reservoir. The small screen inside. You want to be careful when removing this not to damage it. We can go ahead and remove the old fluid. Now we'll be using a fluid extractor to pull as much brake fluid out of the reservoir as possible. If you don't have one of these, a turkey baster will also do the job. Now we can go ahead and top off our reservoir and start the brake bleed. We're going to start out bleeding the brakes on the right front, moving on to the left rear, left front, and then the right rear. We can go ahead and remove our bleeder screw cap. We can put our 8mm wrench onto the bleeder screw. And we'll be using a length of hose and a receptacle to catch the fluid. Now we'll have our assistant pump up the brakes. When they tell you they're holding, go ahead and release. Now we can have our assistant pump up the brake pedal again. Crack the bleeder screw. Watch your flow of fluid. Once you have no more bubbles, you're all set. Got to be careful when removing your hose. Now we'll use some brake cleaner and clean down the area. Reinstall your bleeder screw cap, and we can move on to the next caliper. Once you've bled the first two brakes, go ahead and top off your reservoir. Now we can go ahead and remove our bleeder screw cap. Put our 8mm wrench on the bleeder screw and our hose to catch any of the brake fluid. We'll have our assistant pump up the brake pedal. And we can loosen the bleeder screw. Once your assistant lets you know that they've hit the floor, go ahead and tighten down the bleeder screw. We'll have them pump the pedal again. Once your assistant lets you know that they're holding, go ahead and loosen the bleeder screw. Watch your flow of fluid. Once you have no bubbles coming through the line, you're all set. We can reinstall our bleeder screw cap. We'll spray the area down with some brake cleaner. We can give the area a wipe down. Now that we've bled the brakes, we're going to come back and top off the reservoir. You want to fill it up to the max line. That looks good. We'll reinstall our screen. And install our cap.
When only the best will do, demand TRQ. The only company that lets you view before you do. TRQ is committed to offering the highest quality aftermarket auto parts that are engineered for peace of mind. Thanks for using and viewing with TRQ.